So this is Elementary Algebra 7.8a, and the name of this section is called Variation. Now you don't have to understand what the variation means at this point. As we start doing some story problems, dun dun dun, you'll get an idea of what variation means. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you first of all, we're going to talk about variation that's called direct variation. And for direct variation, has a formula for it. And then when we're done with direct variation, we're going to talk about inverse variation. But we'll just erase that for right now and we'll get to it later. But direct variation has a formula that looks like this. Y equals kx. Okay, there's the formula. Everything is going to be based around that formula. And the k is always the very first thing you're going to look for. And then you'll find your x, and then you'll find your y. And k is called the constant of variation. And what it is a number in the equation that will always be the same. It's a constant. It doesn't shift or change. Like x and y, depends on what x is, y will be something. But the k will always stay the same. And so the important thing as far as k is that you may use this formula, and every story problem will have a different k. Meaning that it depends on what the story problem says on what this constant is going to be. And so that's why you have to find it first, because once you find k, then everything else kind of revolves around that. So, and again, every time you do a different problem, you're going to have a different k. So that's why you have to find it first, because you can't really do much unless you know what your k is. So I'm going to write my formula for direct variation there. And if I'm going to use direct variation, I'm going to use the word direct or directly in my story problem. So I may say y varies directly as x. I may say y varies directly as maybe the square of x. Let's say I wrote that y varies directly as the square of x. Well, then I square x. Okay, so I'm using this formula, but there are a few variations to that formula. I may say r varies directly as the cube of s cubed, s to the third power. So see, the format is the same, but I may use different letters, and I may have a cube up there, I may have other things up there, but it will generally look like that right there. So example 5, which seems kind of strange, we're starting with example 5. Suppose y varies directly as x. Okay, so they already told you it's going to be that formula. When y is 15, x is 3. Find y when x is 4. So find y when x is 4. Problem right here. There's what we're trying to find. I have two variables, right? I can't have two variables in one equation. I can only have one variable in an equation. And that's why I say we're going to find k first and then go from there. So what we do is we erase what they're asking for and we write the initial, wrong button. We write the initial problem here. 15 is y, 3 is x. Now I have one variable. Now I can find out what my k is by dividing both sides by 3, and I find out k is 5, 15 over 3. Okay, so I found that first. Now I can look at the second part of the problem. Find y when x is 4. Well, I found out k is 5, so I know that's going to go right there. So y is 20. Okay, so I find k, and then I use the next equation. So you're always going to have two equations. So you're going to have one equation to find k, and you're going to have another equation to find the answer. So let's look at example 6. Suppose y varies directly as the square of x. Y varies directly. Basically what that means is equals k, varies directly, as the square of x. So x squared. Okay? So there's my problem. When x is 4, y is 32. So that gave me enough information to find k. So 32 equals 4 times 4 is 16. Divide by 16, divide by 16. K then is 32 over 16 is 2. Now I look at the second part. Find x when y is 50. And what did I say k was? 2. And we're looking for x. Actually, we're looking for x, but there's our formula, because right there. So we take our k of 2 and put it in, and any additional information they give us, in this case they gave us that y is 50, and we're looking for x. But you have to remember to use the formula that they tell you to use, and then we divide by 2, and we have 25 equals x squared. Okay, so what are the two number, or what is the number multiplied by itself that gives me x squared? And that is 5. So 5 times 5 is 25. Also, negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. So I really have two answers. I have 5 and negative 5. And I'm really not sure why they go into this right here, because we don't really get into the how-tos of this until the next chapter. Although if you have had pre-algebra with me, you should be aware of what this sign is, a square root sign. And a square root is basically saying, asking the question, what number multiplied by itself gives me 25? So if I say, what is the square root of 25? That means what number multiplied by itself will give me what's under the sign. And it also is negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 5 is 25, because a negative times a negative is a positive. So what they do, rather than writing x equals 5 and negative 5, they will write it as x equals plus or minus 5. That means basically x is positive 5 and negative 5. Okay, so instead you can write it this way, but this is the shortcut version. So what I was looking for is what number to put in here for x, what number times itself is going to give me 25. And those are my two options there. Alright, so again we'll get into radicals in the next chapter. I'm not really sure why they're kind of touching on it now without explaining what's going on. Alright, so that's direct variation. Now we're going to do inverse variation. So inverse variation just has a different formula. Everything is done the exact same way, but we have a formula that is y equals k over x. Remember, direct variation was k times x. Inverse variation is k divided by x. So there's our formula for inverse variation. So let's go ahead and look at example 11. Suppose y varies inversely as x. So that's telling me we're using this formula. If they would have said y varies directly as x, we would use the y equals kx. So what they do at the very beginning is they're just telling you which formula you're going to use. When y is 4, x is 5. Oops, wrong formula. I don't know why I did that. X is 5. Okay? So that gives me a chance to find k. Now how do you find k when you have a number in the denominator? Well, if you remember, number divided, to get rid of it, you multiply. So I have 20 equals, and those cancel, k. So there is the initial part of the formula giving you your x and your y so that you can find k. Now the second part assumes you know k. Find y, so we're going to look at this formula right here, when x is 10. Well, we know k is 20, so we'll put that up there, and when x is 10. So what is 20 divided by 10? 2. So when x is 10, y is 2. That's pretty much it. And we're going to jump into the applications. And it looks like there's 2 applications here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the video. I don't know that I can do both those applications in 4 minutes, but video 7.8b as in boy will be pretty short. So that's it for 7.8a.